in the air. There's something, you know, and then it's true, you do have to kind of go back and go, well, I guess maybe they don't, you know, what I liked about it, when I had that realization, was sort of like, okay, they're human. We're all human. By the grace of God, or whatever you believe in, and luck and perseverance, you ended up there on that stage accepting that award, but they're human, you're human, and everybody else is human. There's an equalizer that happens. I don't know, that did for me anyway.
What's been the progression of feelings? Because Lily Audra has won 5, which is fairly unheard of. I mean, most of it. Lansbury won 5, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And Julie Harris.
So, like, what's been the progression of feelings? Because Sutton said the first time she won, all she kept thinking was, I just don't want to trip. Because she was so scared she was going to trip in her dress.
Yeah.
And then the second one, she didn't prepare a speech. Like, what's been your progression of, like, how you deal with it and what it means to you?
The first one was such a blur, because it just all happened so quickly.
The first one was for Carousel, and she was super young. And what's crazy about that, also that being so young, it's like, you know, when you're on Broadway, it's like Seth Foster went from like playing Sandy in Grease to then doing the chorus in Third Leonard Miller. She went like up and down, but then once you have a Tony Award, because I did a cabaret with Audra right after Carousel, and I remember Audra saying Carousel then closed, and she said, just because you have a Tony Award doesn't mean you have a job. And the point is that you then can't audition for an ensemble job after you have a Tony Award. Because right before Audra got Carousel, you auditioned for what big Broadway musical?
Beauty and the Beast.
Ensemble, and you were offered it?
No, I didn't get it.
So they were like, you're not up to snuff to be in the chorus, but we want to give you a 20 award because you're so bright. In like the same year.
Yeah.
Now, what particular utensil were you up for?
I don't know.
So you won it so young at 24, and then that must have been the biggest change.
Yeah, that was a blur, and just that one probably. I mean, none of them have ever like really hit me, but I don't think that one will ever hit me. You know what I mean?
Because you were so in it.
Yeah, it was just all such a magical sort of 6 months. You know, it was like I got the job in like November. We opened in March, and then the Tonys were like, what, May or June of that year? It all happened so fast. It was just, you know, I had no idea what was going on.
You never had a big part on Broadway before that?
No.
So your first role on Broadway, you done on the 24 for it?
Yeah, so it was really sort of overwhelming. And then the second one, I didn't expect it. I don't think I won the Drama Desk, or I don't think I was nominated for a Drama Desk or an Outer Critics for Masterclass, so it was like, whatever. And then I don't think I was nominated, or I didn't win the Drama Desk for Ragtime. I wasn't nominated for an Outer Critics either, so Ragtime was sort of like, everybody was like, let's see, so, you know, I didn't, you know, once again, I just wasn't really expecting it. And by the time Raisin in the Sun came, you know, that was some years later, and I was, you know, I was a mom by that point, and I was just having a good time with those people. So when that one happened, I think that one kind of, I sort of went, whoa, what's happening? This is a little crazy.
This was your 4th one.
Yeah, yeah. And then this last one, I think was probably the most emotional, because Zoe was so a part of it, and it had been such an emotional experience of doing Porgy and Bess, and everything with Sondheim and all the crap we went through trying to get there, and all we were doing was just trying to make the show the best thing that we could. So, and just having Will out there, and the boys, and Zoe, and we had such a great day. It was like we all went on a big date. That whole day is what it felt like for us, and everybody was dressed up. So that's the one that feels the most real. Like, that's my first Tony, as far as I'm concerned. That's the one that feels the most real. So.
Well, what's so interesting is that Zoe was a part of that Tony, but did she ever see Porgy and Bess?
She did. She did.
And then what did she think of your, now how do you describe your role in that show?
Drug-addicted hooker.
So did you have to sort of tell her beforehand, like,
I forgot to tell her beforehand.
So she's she's like, a musical, yeah.
I usually tell the story at my concert, but I'll tell it now. She was a little like, it was awkward. That's what she told me. She was awkward. She said, you did some awkward things. And I said, do you want to see it when it comes? This was when she saw the out-of-town tryout. I said, you want to see when it comes to Broadway? She said, nope. She didn't. She didn't. She would sit backstage, and I can't tell you how many times she'd be like, Mom, did you bring your earphones for my iPad? Like, oh, she said, because you start screaming and I can't.
Singing. I guess, so go back, because you know, you've never really kind of had a public forum, like in the New York Times, and you talk about the whole craziness of Porgy and Bess. If you don't know about this, you know, Porgy and Bess was being revived, and there was like an interview with Diane Paulus directing it, and also Audra and other cast members, and it was in the New York Times, and Stephen Sondheim wrote this like 10-paragraph letter, like about everything he was offended by with the revival. So the first thing that I was just bring up is that when you have a New York Times article, it's like you have tons of interview, and then they pick and choose the actual quotes that they're using. So talk about how, like, let's say a quote was taken out of context in New York Times.
Well, the writer who came and did the interview was with us for I think 2 to 3 days, and he was sitting in on rehearsals, and we were still blocking at the time and staging and trying to figure things out. There was one day, rehearsal was actually the day that we were trying to figure out and block the big rape scene between Crown and Bess, and we had not figured it out yet. We literally were starting to block it that day. And I asked that he was there, but I said, can he leave the rehearsal, please?
Why was it so physical? And
It's so awful and physical, and we were getting ready to, for the first time, figure out what it was going to be physically. And it was like, you need, as actors, you need a safe space to do that, especially when you're going to figure out how do we stage you raping me. So I didn't want a reporter there for that, because I didn't know what we were going to do, what we were going to find. I didn't know if I was going to have an emotional reaction. So I was like, can he just sit this one out? There are many other rehearsals he can be a part of. And so, I don't know if he was miffed or not, but they had to speak to him, and he did leave, and then, and you know, whatever. And then, you know, but he was with us for days, and spoke to me, I think, for at least, when we sat down and did our actual interview, it was at least an hour or 45 minutes, and then would ask questions along the way, and the same thing with all the other actors and other creators. And so he asked questions about, what have you always thought of Porgy and Bess? It's like, I've been obsessed with it since I was in college, and I have this one absolutely memorized, this production memorized. I'm obsessed with Leontine singing these notes here.
Those are different versions of it.
Yes, Cynthia Hayman is the person that, that one recording in Glydenborn was the production that made me realize that I'll be able to survive my time at Juilliard, that there are classical things that I can do where I can be emotionally involved in, and maybe it is worth it trying to stick it out here. So I told him this entire backstory about how much I adore and love this show. So when he prints, they're looking for the most salacious stuff. So when he prints, the few things I said about how, with this, for me to do it, I know I need to figure out who she is and really get in. There's a lot of stuff that I've never quite understood, even with all the productions I've seen or studied. And so I want to figure out how to do that. And I feel like some parts are a little bit archetypal, and that's, a lot of people have thought that,
It's just like stereotypical,
Yeah, and a lot of, for years, blacks were like, I'm not going to do that show. It's degrading. We've gotten past that. Sidney Poitier is on record for saying that he was really upset that he ended up doing the movie of Porgy and Bess. It was just because he was under contract and had to. He's like, because we've come too far to have to play these kind of stereotypes, And so that was during the 60s and 50s when there was a whole new sort of emergence of the civil rights movement and Black power and Black identification and self-identification. So at any rate, the few quotes about that was the only things that made it into the article. And so when Sondheim went after me and went after Diane went after Susan, he didn't have the full story at all, and he was accusing me of not having any sort of respect for this opera.
But meanwhile, you began the whole conversation saying, and also, I thought, didn't you also specifically say, well, what to you doesn't work about the show?
Yeah, what doesn't work?
Really asking, but then they leave out the question, and then Audra goes like, what doesn't work is, so then it sounds like she's just out of nowhere dishing it.
Yeah.
And then part two, you know, it's called The Gershwin's Porgy and Bess, just like right now it's called Roger and Hammerstein's Cinderella. So Sondheim was in a rage. They wanted out Dubose Hayward, who wrote the story.
Yeah, the story.
And they why did they call the Gershwins? How dare Diana Paulus call the Gershwin's Porgy and Bess?
Cut to, that's been the title of it for the past 20 years. And if you look back on some of the most famous productions in the past 20 years, and that's because, that's the Gershwin estates who did that, because Ira Gershwin wasn't getting enough credit, they felt, because everybody's like, it's George Gershwin's Porgy and Bess, it's George Gershwin's Porgy and Bess, and the Ira Gershwin estate's like, wait a minute, I wrote this too. And so they said, okay, from now on, any production that is going to be done of Porgy and Bess, you have to call it the Gershwin's Porgy and Bess.
So it's contractual. It's not acting like it's Diane Paul's Diane.
Yeah, and we're like, this is something that has been, so there was a lot of misinformation. Whatever, it was hard, it was really difficult because once Stephen Sondheim's letter came out, we hadn't even opened yet, we hadn't even started previews yet. Backers for the show pulled out. We were in danger of not going to Broadway as a result of this. And
you got all this crazy anger.
People were furious. I mean, some people were saying to me, who does she think she is slamming this show? And other people saying, how dare she be a part of this production too? People were saying if she knew better, she wouldn't. I used to be a fan, but I'm not a fan anymore because you're choosing to do something like this, to desecrate this piece. So people would come to our production in Boston with Sondheim's letter in their hand.
Literally, physically.
Letter in their hand. He says here, we're like, well, that's interesting. Yeah, at that performance, there had been no performance yet, so he hadn't seen anything. The Philadelphia newspaper reviewed the first preview.
Reviewed it?
Reviewed our first preview.
You know, you have preview performances, critics are not allowed, and then finally they say the show is not ready to be reviewed, and then critics are allowed to come.
And that's usually in New York. On an out-of-town trial, you're supposed to sort of not review it at all. Right? You have the out-of-town trial, that's the whole point. All the papers came for the opening night, but the Philadelphia paper reviewed our first preview and printed that and said, here's what's wrong with this production. Like, wow, it was our first performance ever. Thanks for that. So there was just, which is why it ended up being so emotional for us when we finally did make it to Broadway. We finally did get the money together. We finally were established. We finally got up and running, and then we did have fans, people who liked the show. And then to be recognized with the best revival for us was just, we felt like we had walked through fire as a group. And it just made us closer, and it made us more focused on making the show the right one for us.
So why do you know, some people I know use Broadway as a stepping stone to television. Why do you continue to come back to Broadway? Because, you know, Audra was starring on The Practice, right? Private Practice. By the way, the crazy thing is, I know Audra and Tay, and like I literally had a witness them making out on screen. Was it as horrifying for you as it was for me?
Horrifying. This pisses off Tay when I say this, but Tay and I met during Carousel. He was in the ensemble of Carousel, so it was he had just graduated from Syracuse. It was our first show, both of us. So I met Tay before Adina met Tay, and so I met him when he was Tay. And goofy, and he still is, you know, but he's also, Tay was that too. Whenever I see him here, I'm just like, whatever. So when they cast me in Private Practice, I was like, oh, I'm his ex-wife. Okay, that's fine. Good.
No contact.
And so like the first, because he's just a brother to me, so the first couple of episodes of our show, we're like, wow, there doesn't seem to be any sex with anybody in the show. It's kind of interesting because it's a Shonda Rhimes show, and she's all about the, you know, the salacious sex and who's going to do it where. I'm like, that's so funny. We'll wonder who will be the first people to do it on our show. Open up the script. Naomi and Sam do it on the conference room table of their office. And I remember seeing him just be like, no, we're divorced, no. It was, and so it was horrifying. And everybody else was like, you're the luckiest one in the world. And
you didn't have a choice as an actor, right?
No, we didn't have a choice. It was difficult. We shot that scene at like 3 o'clock in the morning. It was a super long day. And actually at one point, one take, the director was not saying cut. And he was not saying cut. And then finally, Tay was like, come on, man, this is ridiculous. Say cut.
So talk about the craziness, because you decided to have Zoe stay in New York, her kid, to stay in school. So what was your life like when you were doing a television show in California and your kid was in New York?
It was awful. It was awful. At the time when I said yes to private practice, my dad had died a month and a half before. I had just separated from my now ex-husband, and I was a bit at sea, to say the least. And so I said yes, not thinking that the show would make it, thinking that it would just, you know, maybe, and also thinking that if it does, we'll see what happens, I'll maybe bring Zoe out. Well, it made it, but Zoe was firmly in her life in New York, and I realized that it'd be too stressful for her, for me to yank her from everything she knows. And so, especially with her parents newly separated, I thought this is just the wrong thing to do. So I decided that I would just fly back every weekend, and every time I had more than 2 days
Cross
off.
country.
So I accumulated in my 4 years of doing private practice, I think I counted, it was like 756,000 miles.
You didn't get upgraded?
From time to time. But the cast would make fun of me because they'd literally be like, and cut, and there goes Audra. I'd literally be like O.J. Simpson runs to the airport, you know, leaping over things, and I had everybody at JFK knew me, the TSA officers knew me, and the ones in, especially for American Airlines, the ones in LA knew me as well. They'd be like, there goes Audra. And then at the end of holiday season, they'd be like, we were wondering where you were, because we're like, you know, the holidays are almost over, you gotta get back in there. What's gonna happen with Naomi and Sam? When Zoe had vacations and stuff, she'd come out, but I came home every weekend, and if I had 2 days sometimes. So I was coming home at least 3 times a month, sometimes 4 times a month.
And now what about, you know, really it's interesting once you're a quote-unquote celebrity, like dealing with rumors and postings and stuff, and I know some people were like, she got fired.
That was fun too. Yeah, I got fired from private practice. They're like, well, I mean, you know, I just wasn't used to that level of celebrity. I'm not like what Kate Walsh has to deal with or Tay has to deal with, where people dig through their garbage and take pictures of them as they're just trying to walk down. I don't have that at all, but people, you know, were saying, first of all, well, she looked like a man anyway. And people said, we think she's a drag queen, we think she's a drag queen. There was that in the first season.
I didn't know that.
Oh, that was fun.
Hilarious. So stupid.
I should have gone with it. I should have said, and then, you know, what ended up happening with private practice is Shonda Rhimes is a great woman to work for, and because she is a single mom, single African-American mom, she and I had a lot in common. And after the second season, I said, is there any way we can just reduce the amount of episodes I'm in, because this is really getting hard? And she said, yeah, absolutely. So she reduced me to, I think I did only 18 episodes, the third season. And she said, at the end of this season, let me know how you're feeling, and if you need me to reduce it more, I will. She said, I don't like doing this, but I understand what you're going through, and we all see what you're going through, and we see the stress, and so we just want to make it comfortable for you. And so I reduced a little bit more at the end of that season. I said, if we could just go down a little bit more. And she said, okay. She said, but in December, you need to make a decision. She said, because the network is like, where is Naomi, what's going on? And so I said, okay, I promise you, by December I'll make a decision. She said, I want you for all 26. She said, but I understand if you feel like you can't. And if you can't, I totally understand, and I will let you go with love and understanding, and we won't kill off Naomi. We'll figure out something to do. She said, but I'm hoping you'll say you could do the full season and stay. And so I called her Priscilla and I was like, I can't do it. I need to go. And so she did the sweetest thing. She sent Naomi off, for those who watched the episode. Naomi got married, or got proposed to, and her daughter got accepted to Columbia in New York. So she moved to New York to be with her daughter. So that's how Naomi was sent off, which was just, I mean, another like, Shonda Rhimes hates her. I'm like, oh my God, Shonda Rhimes gave me the most beautiful Valentine. And so when I opened that script, I was like, oh my gosh, she's like, I told you we had to give you some kind of good going away. So, and it was beautiful what they did. And then she said, you know, when we can, we'll try and bring you back. And so when we figured out the show was ending, she brought me back and she was like, I'm gonna find some good way to bring you back. And so she brought me back and I ended up marrying Tay. Marrying Tay, and then for those who didn't see the final episode, Naomi finds out she's pregnant at the end of the episode. So I married Tay, and Tay and I guess we're having another TV baby. So,
you want to stay on Broadway now? You want to stay in New York?
Yeah. I mean, if ever I do a TV show again, it has to be here. I did it, and it was educational. I learned a lot. I was afraid of being in front of the camera. It's a very different beast, you know. And so I learned to not be afraid.
You've done so much TV before that.
No, but just, it was sporadic, so I never felt comfortable. I never felt like I could get to, you know, performers know this. We talk about your power plays, you know, like you get on stage, you know, stage performers, we get on stage and it's like, all right, I know where I am, I know what I'm doing, I know where center stage is, I know where this is at, I know what I'm doing. In a camera situation, it's like, well, is that camera on me? Are we doing close-ups, what's happening? And then you also don't have the energy that revs up to the scene. It's just like, you know, I mean, I think about all the love scenes that I end up doing on private practice, and they've got, you know, tape coming at you, and this, and lights, and someone's doing this to your makeup, and someone's saying, move the boob up, whatever, all this stuff. And then, next thing you know, they're like, and action. And you're like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, it's this terrible, sort of invasive thing that it's hard to find a place to then